record. Great stuff. So I just want to say welcome
could
along.
you just put that onto...
Oh, go on, sorry Dawn, what were you saying?
Put it onto slideshow, please.
Of course I will,
Michaela.
do. Yes, yeah, I'm just checking we've got people in that need to be here.
Okay.
I'll just quickly say, so my name is Michaela. I'm one of the co-founding directors of Flourish Together, and this is the first of our Lunchtime Learning series as part of International Women's Week. We're really pleased to have Dawn Kelly here, who's going to introduce herself and what we've got happening today. So I'll hand over to you, Dawn. Thanks ever so much.
Okay, thank you. So hi everybody, it's really nice to see you all. And just before we start, a couple of housekeeping about online. Normally I would move my own PowerPoint, but I've had to ask Michaela to do it because we already had a bit of a technical issue. So just really, you're probably all so used to this by now, but if we could, I think everyone's on mute anyway. If you would like to show yourself, it'd been really nice to see everybody's faces. So if you feel okay to do that, it doesn't matter what you look like, but that'd be really great if you could do that. Obviously, we've got the chat box at the bottom, so just keep an eye out if anything comes, or if you want to say anything, please just put that in the chat. But there'll be an opportunity to speak up and ask any questions. And if you do at any point, just please do. It's really, really informal today. So if we could just move on to the next slide. Thanks, Michaela. So a little bit about me. I am a business and executive coach, trained as a coach for about 16 years. And a facilitator, run lots of different training programs and work with lots of different groups of people. So really looking forward to today. And actually, I've got a friends WhatsApp group, and I shared the personal assessment that I'll send out to you all at the end. So if you haven't done an imposter syndrome, a self-assessment, you'll get the opportunity to do that. And it's your personal assessment. Nobody else will see it. You don't have to share it with anyone else. So I shared it with friends today. So that was last night rather. That was so that was quite good, because they were all saying, oh yeah, you know, that's me and I need to do this. And I sort of highlighted some discussions. So and we all like finding out about ourselves. So hopefully you'll enjoy that. So we have got Vic Turnbull, and we've got Michelle Booth, who are going to be our speakers, as well as Michaela today. I'll let them introduce themselves. What Michaela didn't say is that, yeah, she's the director, one of the directors of Flourish, but she won an award last night with the Northern Power Women.
Well, better bring it out and give it an airing. It'll get bandied about this week, but yes, very cool. Somewhat unexpected, but bloody well deserved for all of our team and everybody else and all the amazing women and people that we work with. So super chuffed. Yeah,
absolutely. And that was for innovation, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
So well done. So the format of today is that, okay, we're going to look at, we hear this word imposter syndrome around so much, but what does it really mean? So we're going to have a look at that. And then when I send the link at the end of the session, it really goes into detail, and you'll not only find out about yourself, you'll find out all about much more about imposter syndrome. So I'm going to I'll talk to you more about that. Obviously, then we've got our speakers, and then we'll have some questions and a chance for people to ask or say whatever they'd like to say. Okay. Any questions before we start? Does everyone hear us and see us and everything? Put it in the chat box or shout up if you can't. All right, thank you. So, okay, yeah, that's great. So Michaela said to me, you know, asked me whether I'd run this session. I said, yeah, that's fine. And then she said, we're going to call it Squaring Up to Imposter Syndrome. And I said, well, I've got a subheading called The Song Inside. And where that comes from, a philosopher, Theodore, back in the 19th century, he said that, you know, most people still live and die with their greatest song unsung, and that actually only 20% of us reach our full potential. And one of the possible reasons for that is possibly self-sabotage, imposter syndrome. And so you can be super, super confident, you can be great at what you're doing, but it can still affect us in different ways. And so the next slide takes us through the different saboteurs. There are 9 different saboteurs. And we have one main saboteur who's our judge. So you can see there's different ones there: controller, hyperachiever, restless, stickler, pleaser, hypervigilant, avoider, victim, hyper-rational. And I thought, what would be the best way to describe how this can actually affect us? So has anybody ever seen this before? Put your hand up if you have.
No, I'd never.
Okay. You might be looking at some of those and think, oh, that could be me, or that's definitely someone I work with or I live with. So I thought I'd tell a story with all these different imposter syndromes in the story to try and bring it to life, so to give you an idea of what we mean by that. Okay, so we have our judge, and this is the one that constantly is finding fault with what we're doing, and others, and our situations and our circumstances, and it's the one that's we're always judging ourselves. But the judge also has a number of accomplices, and the accomplices are these that you can see on the screen now. So I'm going to tell the story about a journey. So imagine that you're on a long and steep hike, and the goal is to reach the summit. Then you load your backpack with huge, heavy rocks, and then you throw one on your toes every once in a while. And so that's our imposter that is leaking into. We set off really positive to climb high, and then we fill everything, our backpack full of all of these. So let's have a look at how that could impact on our journey as we're trying to reach to the summit. So we've got on here the stickler. So the stickler is the need for protection, order and organisation taken too far. On this journey, it forces you to waste too much energy on taking perfect steps, even when perfect steps aren't really required. Then we've got the pleaser, and this compels you to gain acceptance and affection by helping, pleasing, rescuing, flattering others constantly. Now on this journey, it has you lose sight of your own needs by letting others go ahead of you, wasting enormous time trying to gain everyone's approval, and it gets you to sacrifice your own progress, and then you actually might come to start resenting it. Then we've got the hyperachiever, and this makes you dependent on constant performance and achievement for self-respect and self-violation. Your whole focus will be to get to that summit as best and as the first and as quickly as you can. But by doing that, you might miss some of the joy and feelings of happiness around you, what we often call the here and now. And then we've got the victim. And then the victim wants you to feel emotional and temperamental as a way of gaining attention and focus. But on the path, it might alienate the people that you're with as they get fed up with your dramatics and oh, woe is me all the time. Then we've got the hyper-rational. And this involves an intense and exclusive focus on rationalizing everything and processing. So not really a good recipe for going the distance when you're trying to rationalize everything you're doing. Why are we doing that? Isn't there a better way? Then we've got the hypervigilant. This makes you feel very intense and continually anxious and vigilant for what might happen. So this extreme vigilance wears you down and slows you down enormously, instead of just being in the here and now and enjoying walking up to that summit. Then we've got the restless. This person is constantly in search of greater excitement for the next activity and the constant busyness of doing what they want to do. And it causes you to take numerous detours from your path in search of greater excitement. Maybe you're the type of person who'll start something and then you'll flip onto something else and then you'll do this and then you end up with loads of things open that you need to do. How overwhelming does that make us feel? Then the final two is the controller. So runs on an anxiety-based need to take charge, control situations, and bend other people's actions to your will. But by doing this, it causes resentment. People might not want to follow your path, and it certainly doesn't create an environment of creativity and people being open to explore and try things. And then the last one, which is my daughter, because I got her to do this test, is the avoider. So they focus on the positive and the pleasant in the extreme way, but avoids difficult and unpleasant tasks, leading them to take a long time to make decisions, and they'll definitely try and avoid things if they can. So if that person's on the journey with you, they'll try and avoid difficult situations that they feel uncomfortable about, and that can get in the way of themselves and others. And so there's an 80% chance that you'll have a far greater potential for success and happiness if you can remove some of these imposter syndromes that are getting in the way for you to be your true, authentic self and really enjoy what you want to achieve. And so the test that I'll send out to you will identify, likely most people have done it with, have identified two key imposters that affects who they are and what they're doing each day, and that's what we're going to be talking about as we move forward. So any thoughts on that?
I've got a question. Do you ever not get anything at all? Is it one of those tests where you have to be something?
I think that it could be that you'll flatline.
Right.
So
they give you ratios, does it, of like?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So it'll flatline that.
Awesome.
Yeah. And as I say, there'll be times when we don't have that, and there'll be other times that we do. And I have to say, when I started looking at it, I thought, no, you know what, I don't think I have imposter syndrome. But actually, when I did this test, I realized that hyperachiever I scored really high with. And then I thought, how's that affecting me? So if I'm running a training course and there could be 50 people on it, if there's 2 people who don't enjoy it as much as I want them to, I will absolutely beat myself up about it and focus on those 2 people. And so, and also I will spend a long time making sure that it's perfect when I don't need to spend that much time. So there's a few nodding of heads and smiles there. So one of the reasons why we might want to do that, and let's look like what it feels like, and then we'll look at the science bit. So if we flip over to the next slide, please, Michaela.
I think we're picking up bits and pieces in the chat. I'll pick up where I can see things, but people are just making comments really, and
okay. Shall we have a look at it?
I'll have a little look for you, but I think it's great to see the different styles, different types, because often people don't know what this thing is or how to describe it fully, or what might be elements that contribute towards it. So certainly there's people who've been thinking about this, and people have said, surely we can be a combination of these different situations.
You can do, and it depends what you're doing as well. And thank you for saying that it was a good way of explaining that imposter syndrome, trying to bring it to life rather than just words and reading out what the definition is. And we've got, maybe it's more effective to say in the situation, I tend to do this, rather than the labels. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, you will get a copy, and when you do the assessment, it gives you a really good printout as well of all of them. So thank you for that. Just looking at what it might feel like So consistent negative self-talk, or maybe it's just when we're actually not feeling great, and that's when it happens. Inability to internalize accomplishments, obsessing over mistakes and failures, even if somebody else might think, I don't think that's a failure, 2 people out of 20. The feeling of never being good enough, overwhelming anxiety of being found out as a fraud. Or it could be just, that you might think, this is where I get found out. This is where people realize I'm not as good as they think I am. So this is how it might feel, but we can change it. And it's just about being aware of that and recognizing those feelings. Why am I feeling that way? When did I last feel that? And as a coach, they're the conversations that I have. Tell me about a time when actually you were feeling positive about this situation. What was that like? What's the difference between then and now? How can you bring those positive feelings into the feelings now? So they're the type of conversations we can have with ourselves. So let's look at the science bit.
Is that me flipping another slide?
It's you, yeah. Thank you.
Just checking.
Okay. So why is it that we sometimes have that negative bias to our thinking? Well, research has shown that we're programmed to focus on and be stimulated with a negative bias. We automatically have those programs in ourselves, maybe not all the time, they just might be sometimes. But there's a magic ratio, and this actually links to cognitive behavioral therapy, if people are aware of that, changing our mindsets and encouraging ourselves to think positively. So the magic ratio is 5 to 1 of positive feelings and interactions to enable feeling positive and building positive relationships. And so there's things that we can do. Some people have gratitude diaries, and I must admit I'm not great at that. I always think, oh my God, get into bed all nice and cozy and think, God, I forgot to do the gratitude diary. But there's one thing that I don't forget to do, and that's clean my teeth. Even if I've had loads to drink, I clean my teeth. And so when you're cleaning your teeth, just think of 3 things that were good about today. And then when you wake up in the morning, remind yourself of those, starting on a positive, and then you finish on a positive as well. So it's that ratio of 5 to 1 positive. And it's the same with feedback as well. It's making sure that we start. I do a lot of strength-based work. There's lots of research about that, about building on strengths and working with people on their strengths rather than focusing on the negative. So don't be tough on yourself. We are actually programmed for that negative bias. But, that's what the research says. You can do the test later, but is that, really real? So before we hear from our speakers, if you could flick on, thanks. The possible impact. Judge yourself by the highest standards. Do we really need to do that? May lead to trying to be a perfectionist, holding on to those flaws, mistakes and criticism. I can't do that because these are the things that just stop me all the time. Feeling a fraud, overworking, me spending ages producing something when actually I could have just finished it hours before. Letting that self-sabotage, oh no, now's not a good time, I'm going to put it off, I'll do it at a different time. Holding back and just really procrastinating, thinking, oh no, what can I do? What would be the best way? Maybe I need to do this, maybe I need to do that. So they're the possible impact. But then is it real? Some of you might be sitting there thinking, no, you know what? I don't think that is a thing for me. But let's hear from our speakers and share their experiences. Do they think it's real or not? How has it impacted them? So just the next slide, and then we'll stop the PowerPoint and we'll open it up so we can see everybody. So just to recap who our speakers are. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, because nobody can introduce ourselves better than ourselves. So we've got Michelle Booth, obviously we've got Michaela, and we've got Vic Turnbull as well. So over to you guys. I'll just open it up to all three of you, really. First of all, what's your thoughts on that? You know, is that something that you think affects you? Oh, sorry, first of all, introduce yourself and then we'll ask a question. Okay, over to you guys. I think people have probably used Zoom a few times, but if you want to change it to speaker view, you will only hear the person that's speaking. So if you do want to do that, just alter the settings on the top right-hand corner. But if you want to see everyone, that's fine too. Okay, would you like to introduce yourselves first of all?
I'll go for it, Vic.
Oh, okay, I'll go first. Hello everyone, how are you doing? Happy Tuesday, forgot what day it was then. I'm Vic Turnbull, Elizabeth Turnbull, not Ball. I get the odd ball thrown in sometimes, but I'm definitely a bull. So I am originally from Sheffield, and I've lived in Salford, Trafford, Bury, Manchester and Tameside, and I now live in Hyde, and I run a podcast production company called Mic Media, MIC Media, short for microphone, not Michael. And what we do is we make podcasts for people, but also train people how to make their own podcasts as well. And my whole thrust, and the reason why I get out of bed every morning, is to help underrepresented voices to tell their stories through awesome audio. It's a social enterprise. I've got a social mission, and so I'm a good egg. I'm one of you guys. I have been doing Mic Media now for like 18 months, since I left full-time employment about 3 years ago. I left working for the Man, a warm man at the time. I've been working in the third sector for 15 years, a combination of the third sector and the creative industries. So working on doing amazing things like documentaries about ninjas and gypsy and travellers, to fundraising on senior management boards for national youth charities as well. I suffer from imposter syndrome. I don't think it's a made-up thing. I was very pleased a couple of years ago when I come across the term of imposter syndrome. I just think I was going bananas, and it was in my own head. And then when I found out about imposter syndrome, I was like, that's me, it's me. And it was a wonderful, no, it wasn't a wonderful feeling. It was like, oh, there's people out there that think the same as me. I was looking online a couple of days ago about imposter syndrome and what's out there, and I had the best description of it, and it was a hot mess of harmfulness. Hashtag, that's the hashtag for today, at Silent Vic on Twitter and Facebook. So yeah, that's me. Okay, thanks Vic. And we've got a comment there that somebody said, yeah, it made me feel normal knowing it was the thing. Yeah, okay, thank you. Michelle?
Nearly did that thing there where I started rabbiting away and you'd have to shout out, you're on mute, but no, I stopped. I'm Michelle Booth. I have many different hats at the moment. I'm a non-exec director of Flourish. So it was great to see Nicola and Co win the award yesterday. So congratulations with that. I am based in the Northeast, where I split my time between being a social entrepreneur myself, where I run a couple of social enterprises up here, being Side by Side Arts and Heartbroken to Healed, which is around grief and loss recovery. I also have my own business, which supports social entrepreneurs to kind of start and grow. And I am an academic as well. So I teach at Northumbria University and I'm doing a PhD. And quite often people say, how can you do all that and then say you've got imposter syndrome? And I think my imposter syndrome is situational. It wasn't until I was leaving a full-time job, which I absolutely loved, and changing my direction into something else, where I kind of realised that my confidence wasn't always it was a bit of a, you know, when they say paint, you know, put your war paint on and you can go out there and you can be anyone you want to be. I'm very, very good at that. So shove me in a lecture theatre, I can act, I can teach. Put me in front of, you know, a business, I can support them. Put me with a person going on their PhD journey, I'm awesome at supporting them. Stick me in the middle of my own PhD journey and I'm like, me, PhD? How the hell can I be good enough to get a PhD? And it was really interesting, Dawn, seeing your 9 personalities, because I think I'm a bit like Vic. I'm definitely a multi-personality and can see myself in lots of them little boxes. And one of my good friends, an awesome social entrepreneur called Martin Hilton, he runs a dance school. And when I was kind of sitting on the fence of, I have this offer to do a PhD in my hand, but am I good enough to do it? And I was like this. I went off to see Martin and he said, oh, I'm with the girls upstairs, come and watch. So I watched the girls do a performance and the girls was all sat down on the floor and I'm sat at the back. And Martin looked over everybody's head and he was making it sound like he was talking to the girls saying, you know, girls, you can be your own best advocate, but you can also be your own best saboteur. And the only person to say you're not good enough is you, and you can be whoever you want to be. And he was looking over all their heads and he was looking me straight in the eye. And that was Martin telling me to stop being a bloody idiot and get on with it. And, you know, sometimes it's easy to put your imposter syndrome back in the box and sometimes it's not. And I'm at the moment of time at the minute where I'm writing my PhD up and I'm using all these words with ology and, you know, isms and things like that in the back. And I keep looking at my thesaurus going, what the bloody hell does this mean? There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's how I've started to get over it, is kind of realizing we're not all super women. We are, but we don't have to be in every single way of, you know, of our lives. So yeah, it's been fascinating, Dawn, honestly, to hear the different personalities and things. I feel like, whoa, I can see me. It's great.
Oh, thank you for that, Michelle. And we'll come back to both of you, obviously. Michaela?
So I already said, I think that, you know, I'm here to play devil's advocate. That's certainly not to dismiss people's feelings or views, because I can see it as a thing. I've come to see it as a thing, and I've met far too many women in our network who say they're affected by it for it not to be a thing, which is why we're running this event. But I find it a limiting concept, and there's just something that doesn't sit neatly with me with the idea of it, I suppose. I think I was thinking this through this morning. I was thinking, you know, we're here to live and learn, we're here to make mistakes, and I just don't buy into things that are limiting if I can help it. It just feels self-destructive, it's not helpful, it's not healthy. And I think it's a term, I'm so glad that you put that set up, because for me it's a term that covers a multitude of things. Yeah. And I think if you can take certain things in isolation, you can deal with them, or you can try and tackle it. And I think the thing we've not perhaps touched on yet, but it will no doubt come out, is the situational stuff, you know, there's things that we can do. But I do think, and you know, we might come back to this later, that the wider world, it might suit some people, you know, and perpetuate issues, perpetuate prejudices for imposter syndrome to exist, and keep us in our boxes. So I'm a bit, you know, conspiracy theorist there, but I think if I'm honest, I've rarely experienced imposter syndrome in my professional life. When I first came up with, for a good couple of years, I was getting really cross. What is this thing that people keep saying exists? You know, why haven't I got it? Why am I not experiencing it? And then I had a bigger alarm bell, actually. You know, I think maybe when I was younger, I think there's something about age, inexperience, nervousness, feeling out of your depth, that, you know, to me, they're all normal things. And so I've not really thought about that. But where I got my alarm bell, and I thought, where, you know, do I experience this? Where am I experiencing this? It is in my personal life, you know, and actually, you know, it's far more worrying for me to be an imposter in my own life than it is to be, you know, an imposter in the day-to-day or in the people that are around me. You know, it's a bit more tragic, a bit more tricky to deal with. But I think, you know, it's something that I've now been aware of for a few years. And, you know, I sit and grapple with it. You know, I'm an only child, I'm a single parent, I'm a sole trader, kind of freelancer. You know, people wouldn't know, but I'm a very isolated person and have been all my life. and I don't get lonely, but in spite of all that, I've got this innate fear of being alone all my life, and that's what cripples me. So I think that's what I've learned from a lot of this. Put me anywhere, send me anywhere. I've got all sorts of coping mechanisms that I must have developed over the years. We'll come back to some of that as to why I don't suffer from this stuff. But I think it does touch everybody, and that's what I'm coming to see. And you have to, once you spot it, you can do something about it.
And it's interesting picking up on, you said, feeling, that you've been alone, but work-wise, I don't know anyone who's surrounded themselves
but I've had to do
with
that
so many people and businesses. Yeah.
I've got it all written down, but I'm very much a people person. So I'm in this real weird life, but I love it. I've created some great stuff, and we'll perhaps touch on some of this stuff. But I think for me, you've got one of those questions: is it something you've experienced? And for me, I probably didn't. Probably there's probably a bit of denial that I would have it, but I think in the main I don't, because I try not to overanalyze things, and whether it's a coping strategy or whether it's me and my life, I've been able to learn how to detach myself from negative chat.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I'm just reading some of these messages here, and I'll come back to those. And just picking up on something you said about negative, Michaela, it's that self-fulfilling prophecy. If that's what we think, if that's what we believe, is that who we become? But we have a choice, and that's what this is about, really. We have a choice of who we are and who we want to be, definitely. Just coming back to Vic, you said a hotbed of mess, I think you said, if I've written that down right.
A hot mess of harmfulness.
Oh, was it? Sorry. Hotbed of, tell me about that, or tell us all about that.
I was doing my homework because I'm a conscientious panel member, and I was reading what other people say about imposter syndrome, and this statement stuck out at me, because I think it's quite harmful having imposter syndrome. But what I've learned to recognize is that it's more common. There's more people that have it than don't have it. Like Michaela's like a proper oddball in all of this, because
total misfit. I appreciate.
Yeah. And I've never met anyone who's not had any inclination towards imposter syndrome. So honestly, it's amazing that Michaela doesn't have it. It's like, bloody hell, how? What? And I'm sure we may dig deeper and explore why. But I think mine is definitely linked to anxiety and mental health struggles that I've had and I continue to have, which is it's anxiety linked with self-esteem issues, linked with social anxiety. So that creates a hot mess of harmfulness. And one of those side effects of that is imposter syndrome. And I think having a better, I don't know, I put this on Twitter earlier, is that connected? Is anxiety connected to imposter syndrome? You might be able to tell me that, Dawn. But
question, I think so.
I think that I've got better since my anxiety's got better. And when I address my anxiety, I address my imposter syndrome, my self-esteem issues and all that sort of stuff. So I think it goes hand in hand with that. But I want to be proved wrong on that, maybe. So yeah, it's being an anxious hot mess linked to being an imposter syndrome hot mess.
So, I mean, as you were talking then, when you say anxious, it's, when we're anxious, we've got loads of things in our head and they're mulling round. And so they are going to stop you doing what you want to do. They're going to stop you being the creative self. They're going to stop you seeing, the possibilities. So there is a link, I had a client this morning who went for an interview and she wasn't successful. And she said, I was just so nervous. I couldn't sell myself. I couldn't tell them all about myself because her anxiety is totally kicked in. But she knew where she was. Her mind wasn't where she needed to be, and we're going to work on that to get her into the place where she wants to be. So the very first point in all of this is recognizing.
Oh, there you
Not, don't stop on a
can do
cliffhanger.
about
I was
it. And you can
really
do that in seconds.
go. Phew,
Okay.
back in the room.
Frozen a bit there. Have I frozen?
Yeah, a little bit, but you're back. We can see you. Have you turned your video off?
People hear me?
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I was ready for my EastEnders.
So coming back to yourself, Michelle, and you said that, you know, when you came to do your own PhD, that you really experienced that. What? PhD, ology, all of that.
Yeah.
Had you experienced before that? Had you experienced those feelings before then?
Yes and no. Throughout kind of my childhood, my parents, my family were absolutely awesome in kind of supporting me, you know, being 100% behind me to go through all education and things like that. But I live in an ex-mining town where people in our community don't go to university. You know, if I think back, there's probably 2 people I remember from school went on to university as well. You know, just from our primary school, not necessarily the comprehensive. And it was always seen as, you know, university, really, you know. So then kind of I felt like I was always like doing a different pathway to people. And if I felt kind of when I was 18 going off to university, when I came back that first summer of coming back, because you grow so much when you kind of, you know, you leave home for the first time, you go off to the big city, because I went from a tiny little village with like, you know, 2,500 people to Nottingham. And, you know, it was like, whoa, big city, crazy, you know, and all of this. And I came back and I felt like I was a fish out of water. And I felt like I was kind of, I lost my identity a little bit, and I was kind of like, who am I? And then I kind of got over that and just thought, well, you know, that's my home life and that's my university life. And then I learned to put things in boxes. So to try and stop thinking negatively, you know, it's kind of like when I'm in Nottingham, that's where I need to be. Where I'm here, you know, I'm home, I'm with my family. But then when I look back and think about it, some of those attitudes was kind of used in school. So I remember at school being told, at the time I wanted to be a vet. I never ended up being a vet, obviously. But at the time I was 14 and we had our careers advice session. And I said, I really want to be a vet. And she wrote down veterinary nurse. And I kind of looked and I said, veterinary, no, vet, I want to be a vet. You know, I was a straight A student. I could have been a vet. And she's like, no, you know. And it was really put on the table to me then, my gender, my socioeconomic background, you ain't going to be a vet, love. And my best friend was wanting to be a doctor. She ended up being a nurse. And it was that kind of feeling. And then as I've gone through life, I've kind of started pushing against those doors a little bit and going, nah, just because of my gender, just because of my whatever, you know. And I think that's where, like, Nicola and I have a very strong connection with that social justice of kind of, you know, you can't put people in a box just because of who they are. And then when I kind of graduated and came back to the Northeast, I ended up in the local authority, absolutely loved what I did. And everybody would say, you know, you're really good at what you do. You know, I had a great reputation for what I did. But every time it came to a senior opportunity, you know, a job application opportunity, people say, you should go for that. And I go, no. And people would be saying, yes, you should. And I said, and I'd get the job application form and I'd look at the person spec and think I didn't have half of it. And then I'd sit down with somebody, and there was this really, really lovely guy called Alan Joblin, and he was a senior manager one day, and he sat me down with the job application, and he said to me, you've got that, you've got that, you've got that, and I'll stop it. And he made me do it, and just purely to show me I could go through the ranks. And he also said to me at that point, you could get anybody, you know, I'm a business advisor. So, you know, a man would come into me with an idea, but they'd say, oh, I can't do it. And I'd say, of course you can. And I can do that for other people. What I can't do is for myself. I'm getting better at that mind. So the council was, you know, I developed a nice little supportive world around that. But going off into the university, whole new kettle of fish. There's some mega crazy, you know, being in academia forever. people, you know, who are just absolutely awesome as being professors and things like that, who kind of look at people like me who's come into academia my late 30s, of being like, they treat me as they call me an early career researcher. I've been doing social enterprise world now for 23 years. I'm not early anything, but I'm early in that seat there. And they sometimes treat me like I don't know anything, but I know a hell of a lot more than they do about the practicalities of the actual being and doing. And I'm getting much better at that, because my kind of, if you think about who do you get your accolades from? Students, for me. I don't really care what the rest of the academic world thinks. If the student says, you know, I've actually learned something there because of your experience. And I often get, you can't live in the academic world and in the practice world. I can't. And so I've learned to put myself in boxes with that. But when it comes to my PhD, because that's purely for me, that's where I fall down. And that's where I go, oh, Christ. And I'm back at being that 14-year-old kid in that career's, you know, advice room again, being told, doctor, no, you can have a bachelor's, which I've already got. I don't want another one of them. And I'm back there. I've got 6 months to get this thing sorted, and I'll do anything to procrastinate, not to write. I cleaned my fridge yesterday for the 3rd time this month, I think, just because it's procrastination. So I had experienced it before, but I think it's situational, in the sense of somebody putting me in that box of going, you know, because universities can be really misogynistic. Hierarchy in university is often male. So it's back in being that female, socioeconomic, being told again, you know, you can't do it. And yeah, it's really weird. It is really weird, but I'm getting much, much better at going, no, back in your box. But putting it in the box isn't always going to get me over it in the long term, because it comes back again. So putting it in its box helps it to go away temporarily, not forever. So
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. And it really explains, you've obviously thought about it. Why am I feeling this way? And it takes you back to the situation. And you know, looking at a few of the comments there, people have said, yeah, it comes from parents, at school, when I was a teenager. And you know, it takes you back. Oh gosh, I feel like a 14-year-old again.
Absolutely.
And the feelings I had, you know, at that time.
I was telling my mum, and me and my mum are like that. We're incredibly, incredibly close. And I was telling my mum I was doing this talk today, and she's like, my mum's not, because the thing is as well, like my mum and dad are not from my kind of academic career-y world either. So they often kind of look at me and go, I don't really understand what you're talking about, but they want to learn and want to know. And I was telling my mum yesterday, and she was like, don't understand what imposter syndrome was. And I told her, and she went, you haven't got that. And I said, well, why do you think? She says, you're one of the most confident people I know. Outwardly, yeah. Inwardly, that's where the self-doubt sits, and it's in here. And that's what I mean. You stick on that lipstick, you can go out and then you be anyone. Yeah. But it does take me back. Yeah, definitely.
And so that's a really good starting point to think. So when you're feeling that way, recognize how you're feeling in the here and now, and think, where's that coming from? And then you have control of how much that impacts. And you know, one of the phrases that I use with people is it's about banking the successes. And so, you know, to give you an example, my daughter, when she was doing her A-levels, she worked at Topshop in Liverpool part-time. And I'd be driving her to the station. She'd be like, oh my God, I feel really anxious. What if they put me on the till? And I'd say, okay, so we have this conversation every time we're driving. What happens when you get into work? And she said, what do you mean? I said, well, what happens when they put you on the till? She says, oh, it's fine. Has anything really awful happened? Well, no. And I said, well, if it did, what would you do? Well, I'd get one of the managers to come. And I said, okay, so that's what you need to think about.
Yeah.
The last time I was feeling this way, it ended up okay.
Totally.
If it doesn't, this is what I can do.
Totally. And I totally agree with that as well, because my PhD supervisor is an awesome lady called Jan Myers, and she's really, really supportive. And we're having this conversation the other day about writing up a particularly horrible chapter of your PhD. And she said, just do it. Just write something. If it goes wrong, we'll fix it, but just write it. And I felt like, honestly, I was standing on the top of that cliff, kind of like rocking. Do I jump? Do I go back? What do I do? But it is sometimes about taking that first step. And once you do take, I started it at the weekend, and I was like, this is quite happily writing it. But it was the thought. It was the thought.
I completely get you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once you, and then that elation that once you do it and you jump off that cliff, you're like, oh,
I know.
It's stopping me now. Look at me, it's dead easy. What was I holding on so like hard for, and putting myself under all this stress when I could have just bloody done it.
I could have written it 10 times over for the procrastination opportunities of sitting there and doing it.
I think this thing we've been talking about in the chat is I have like this block, like I'm stood in front of a brick wall when I want to do something that's really like important and I care really deeply about, and I don't want to bugger it up, and I feel like I can't progress with it. It's like a really weird like thing in front of my chest I can't do, and I've learned over the years to chip away at it, chip away, and then you come through it. Like an example is I've got my own podcast and I love it. It's my baby and I think it's the best thing in the whole world, even though not many people might listen to it, but I love it. And I recorded an episode of this podcast 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, and I've not released it yet. And I've only just started editing it. And half of it is out of date. And it's because I love it so much and I don't want to put out crap, and I'm like, it's disabling, I think is the word for it. So and it's surprising that procrastination and hesitation and perfectionism can be rolled into imposter syndrome as well. It's really interesting to learn that today.
I think I remember it's making me think of when I was at university, and my comeback on that is always, what's the risk of not doing that, because I remember the girl I was at university with, and we shared a house together. She had dyslexia and she had all of these things that were holding her back. And she was still is, most awesome person going, with the best brain, the smartest person on the programme. And she would spend hours and hours and hours and hours labouring over something that I would just get out, because I'm like, although I can be a perfectionist on all sorts of things, I am very much, do you know what, I can either be a perfectionist or I can get this done 3 times over, or, I can get this done and I can move on with the next thing, or I don't know. I just knew, I learned back then that it doesn't have to be perfect. If it's going to be perfect, I could do. I think what helped as well, I had this idiotic, I loved him, but God, idiotic tutor who, was so hard on us all. And you soon realised you could work a good 40, 50-hour week and still fail. So there was no point, going super perfectionist. You had to just get it, you had to just get it out, and getting it done, so that you could be rewarded, or the people you were wanting to benefit can benefit, or whatever it was. You can get on with the next thing. That, I think it was that. It's like, even I certainly saw from the quality of what she did, the last 6 hours she spent fettling something didn't add much to what the first lot did. And I knew mine was crap anyway. Do you know what I mean? I'm not an artist. I draw stickmen, and I still managed to get, a design degree. And that's, I was fine with that. Oh, eat the frog. What's this?
Hello. So just
been mentioned in the chat. There's a book called Eat the Frog. Right, it's about doing the most important thing first and eating the frog. I'm not ready yet. it's just decoration for these Zoom calls.
But it's important doing things by stealth. That's something that I resonate with. I trick myself into doing it. That's how I can detach myself somehow. If I just do it, and I think there'll be people who've had all sorts of hideous experiences, and you don't want to get up in the morning, you can't breathe, you can't physically function, and I think as long as you can keep breathing and keep walking, you can just trick yourself into keeping going. And I think once you've done, for me, it's it's that building up, drawing, what you were saying, drawing on past experiences, and you think, well, once I've done that, just build on that backstory. And I remember doing a really good visioning exercise with somebody else. I mean, I'm not into all of this stuff, if I'm honest, but it was really clever. It was somebody I worked with. She walked us through this scenario, and she got us to close our eyes, and she walked us back in time almost to get us to think about all of the people who were around us. I think we were having to do some public speaking or something like that, and in front of hundreds of people, or it was that kind of thing. And by the time you'd gone from like being born or whatever, and they walk you through all of these scenarios of your life and other people that have been there to support you over the years, and your favorite teachers, and your brown owl, or I don't know, friends at school, people that you used to chat to at work, whatever it was, people who'd been there for you throughout your life, close family, long distant, anyone and everyone in between. It was really, really powerful to think that on any given day you're stepping forward with this massive like cape of support, and that was great.
Rather than having the haversack full of all the rocks that you're filling up, that actually makes your journey really difficult. Someone put on the chat, it's because we care, and I totally agree with that. However, when you do the assessment, the judge it tells us it's okay. The reason why we're like this is because we're passionate, is because we care, and you do need to do that. But how much is that a hindrance? And so we tell ourselves these things to give ourselves permission. And I absolutely agree. You need to care, you need to be passionate, but how much is that affecting you? So it stops being a positive and it ends up being a negative. So that's just something to think about. Just picking up on the jobs bit, when we were talking about, I think it was you, Michelle, we're talking about jobs, but there's a ratio of you might have heard this before. If a woman is thinking about applying for a job, she will only apply for it if she meets 90% on average of the criteria, whereas a man will apply if they meet on average about 60%.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, we're putting up a barrier there rather than just going for it. Which links us in, someone put on the chat, what's the difference? Do men suffer from this? We hear that we're hearing lots about women. Do men suffer from it as well, do you think? What do you think, you three?
They do.
Yeah, I would say they do as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why aren't we hearing it as much?
I think as you know, I'm a lecturer, and yesterday I teach on a master's degree called multidisciplinary innovation, and we've got a small cohort, which is brilliant because the cohort it's from all over the world, and it's quite gender balanced as well. So you can chuck anything in there, and it becomes a really good conversation. You get loads of different perspectives. And I told them, because we were talking about Sustainable Development Goals. So we talked about gender equality a lot yesterday, with it being International Women's Day. So I thought, let's see what the youngsters think about imposter syndrome. So I chucked it in. And some of the guys were kind of, especially because the masters, they can be anything from 21 to mid 40s. They're coming back for the second lot of education, postgraduate education. The older men in the group didn't seem to think about it as much as the younger guys. But the younger guys did feel it. And I think that generation of males are becoming a little bit more open with the feelings. I do a lot of work with because I'm a trained counsellor as well. So many bloody hats, I don't counsel anymore, but that's what I used to do. And I do a lot of work with mental health charities, and we are seeing a lot more men coming through, but a lot more men being honest about their weaknesses as well as their strengths. And I'm seeing that within the university as well. But I think it's a generational thing. Like, my dad would never say he couldn't do anything. He would just avoid it. So he'd have imposter syndrome, but he wouldn't accept it and admit it. Whereas a lot of my female students are the ones that will step forward and say, I can't do this, or I don't feel good enough at doing that. But what's really interesting, coming back to the jobs thing, is my second years of undergrads, they're looking at placements. And the guys are just picking up anything and going, yeah, I'll just apply for that. And the girls are kind of going, no, I can't. But I find myself going to the girls, but yeah, you've got quite a lot of that. Just try. I wouldn't do it myself. So I go into that kind of, I'm in advisor mode and I can help you. But, you know, turn the table, I wouldn't be doing it. So yeah, it is.
So it's in those situations to ask yourself, you know, why not? You know, it's about flipping it. What would I be saying to somebody else if they were asking the questions I'm asking myself? And that's a really good technique.
Totally, but I think in my situation, having that 40, you know, the 14-year-old little thing on my shoulder that I need to get in a box and keep it there, of going, oh well, you're not maybe good enough to be a vet. In my head, if I haven't got all that criteria, I'm not good enough for that job, and it's fear of failure. Yeah. You know?
And coming back to the male, there's a few things about male, female here that you know, I personally think that men do experience imposter syndrome. It's just that they don't share their feelings as much as everyone else, you know. And you know, I'm a coach for the fire service, so a mix of men, male and female, but it is mainly men. So I can absolutely tell you they do suffer from it. And a lot of our conversations are why they're not, you know, what they want to achieve, how can they achieve it, what's stopping them. It's exactly the same conversations as for women, except that women's probably also told 10 other people outside of our meeting, whereas the male probably hasn't. Totally. What do people think about that?
Yeah. Just picking up something on the chat there, Dawn. You know, saying males manage it differently. I think they do, because for my cohort of students, they manage it with a little bit of arrogance. If they don't know something, they'll say it with conviction and they'll be quite arrogant about it. In opposed to, you know, most of the girls go, I don't understand that. You know, so I do think it's about the way they manage it and hide it.
Yeah. Maybe they're even better at putting it away in boxes than the rest of us.
Yeah. So things to do with ego and all sorts, isn't there?
Yeah, it is, and who they are.
And things to do with, like you say, being oblivious to certain things, or just a level of confidence, you know, and how people have treated you all your life will affect things. And if you've been treated differently as a man or as a woman or whatever, and the different kinds of access to things and different kinds of opportunities to things, then it's gonna all play out together, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And Vic, at the beginning, you know, you said that you know, a lot of yours comes from, you know, anxiety. So and there's been a few people have commented that as well. So what have you done about that? Because interesting,
medication
you are now. What was that? Sorry.
Prescription medication helps.
Okay. So you recognise that.
Oh yeah, but I recognised that years ago.
Okay.
So that was a. I mean, I'm not going to go into that because people are like, no, I don't want to do that. But I'm getting better at my anxiety. Lockdown and the pandemic has really helped, you know, and that's a bit of a controversial thing to say, but you might not agree that, or you might not see it in me, but I'm actually an introvert. So being on my own and having this time for myself, you know, was good until about November when I started going a bit mental. But handling my anxiety and knowing what triggers my anxiety better nowadays in my mid-30s is helping with my imposter syndrome a lot more. And it comes in waves, I think, and it is linked more to career professional than personal. So when I started my own business, for example, I have lots of experience, and I'm not very often very good at recognizing my own achievements and experience, but I've done a shit ton of stuff. Anyway, when I moved into podcast production, I thought, well, how have I got any authority in the podcast world? Who am I? Who is this woman starting a business, starting a social enterprise in the podcast audio industry when she's worked in the charity sector and the creative industries? And I've presented my own radio show for the past 4 years, but I thought I had no authority in the podcast sector. What am I doing? What are people going to think of me? Who's this idiot coming up and thinking she's the bee's knees, which I didn't, but you know what I mean. So that was hard, and I'm still dealing with that now, actually, in the fact that I don't think I deserve to position myself as I position myself sometimes, which is which is weird. I don't know, yeah. So I'm getting better at it. But I do have this, I think it's linked with like an identity crisis, or a it comes in peaks and troughs. Especially if my anxiety is really bad, like a couple of, like in November time when I'd had enough, like it was going out of control again. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. Like professionally, like what am I doing? So, but recognizing that, I recognize that, you know, so I will try and help myself now, and know what I'm doing. A couple of years ago, if I had a panic attack, or I was anxious, or I was going through imposter syndrome, I just rode through it like an idiot, and it made me more ill, and it made me more anxious. So now I recognize that shit's going down, and I try and address it.
Okay.
That was a really long-winded answer to what you were saying.
That was really useful.
Can I come in on something, Dawn? Because I think something that I was to reflect on this morning. You know, I was talking before about, you know, for me, you know, somehow being this misfit, having, you know, this level of self-belief and this ability and the support that I've had from different people, jobs, whatnot, to draw on past experiences and use that is something that I think is a really important part of why we created Flourish. Because I think we're trying to create that backstory for people. You know, we're trying to create that for people, whether they've got that backstory or not, and you know, and find their own path and do these different things. And what we realised, and you know, it'd be interesting to hear from Vic on some of this, but you know, we realised from some of the social impact and value work that we've done for the last few years, that what we're doing at Flourish isn't just about enterprise support, but it's often helping women go through an identity transformation as a byproduct of whatever, the network, the connections, the stuff, the other agencies that they link to as well. And I think it shocked us when we were reading back feedback years ago on certain things. You know, we don't, you know, they don't have to go through some sort of identity transformation, but we've just noticed over the years, women more than men have to go through an identity transformation for loads of different reasons. Be it physical reasons, be it motherhood reasons, be it menopause reasons, be it divorce and relationship breakdown reasons. There's all sorts of these transformations going on at any one given time that are affecting somebody's ability to flourish. And I think what we try to do is just create the space, you know, for people to go on that path, you know, take hold of themselves. I'd say by stealth usually, because you know, focusing on some of this stuff isn't helpful. It depends how people want to do it, but that's something we've realised in the last few years, and something we're actually trying to actively do more than just say, oh, well, we're all about running social enterprise programs. You know, our latest program called the Time to Grow program, because it creates whatever it needs to be for that person that's trying to grow.
So it's about, instead of when either yourself is feeling or thinking something, or somebody else is feeling something, oh, I can't do that, we naturally do the soothing. Oh, you can, you're great, you'll be fine. Well, actually what we need to do is, which is what you've been doing with Flourish, is find out where they're coming from, how they're feeling, and they're the things that we can do ourselves. Find out who we are, what it is that we want to do. Where's the support? Surround yourself with support and people and situations that make you feel good. Because what I heard from all, you know, from Vic and Michelle particularly, is that when they actually imposter syndrome seeped in, it was about the situation they were in, how they were feeling at that time, the people that they were surrounding themselves with. And so just coming back to, you know, I'm conscious of time, so we do want to open it up as well and get more people to, you know, say, we'll get you off your mute and say stuff. But it is about recognizing how you're feeling, why you're feeling that way, and where it comes from. So as a coach, that's what I do. When someone says they're feeling something, they describe how they're feeling, and then we'll start to explore where that comes from. Because once you know where it comes from, you can start doing something about it. And if you know, sometimes you might not be sure but in the end it'll come out, actually, I do remember feeling this way. And so it's about filling yourself with that knowledge so that you can move forward. So hints and tips, 3 of you. What are the hints and tips to share with the group before we open it up? And I know I've just gone through some things there. What's worked for you
While
guys?
they're on mute, I'll jump on quick. I know, because I thought this through this morning. So
Yeah.
I was thinking, for me, it's that be kind to yourself thing. And, you know, and it sounds really cheesy, all this, I'm picking other people's language, but, you know, sit with the discomfort to a point, you know, and try and, like Vic said, try and work out where it's coming from, you know, rather than, you know, whitewash it or dismiss it, or with some sort of term. Think it through. And I think for me, you used a different phrase, but when you said the phrase you said earlier about your daughter, for me it was, I use, and it's not very, it doesn't sound very healthy, but it's the way, you know, push through the burn, I call it. If you can push through the burn, you know,
Yeah.
where you feel able, and spot and recognize, you know, what you have achieved, so that you can, you know, draw on what, you know, all of that. So you can, when you need to bat off those securities, and making it very simple. I love what you said about when you're brushing your teeth. I'm not one for writing journals and affirmations and all this stuff. I totally love that, and where that works for people, it's really, really important part of what people need to do. For me, doing what you just said, brushing your teeth, and I put, this was my brushing your teeth, I put, you know, a good dance around the kitchen to your favorite tune, even if it's only a tune in your head, is probably where I start if I, you know, start needing to eat a frog.
Thank you. Thanks, Nicola. Vic?
So I don't know what to say to you, because I don't think that I'm very good at abolishing the imposter syndrome. So how can I impart wisdom on you guys? But no, I will say that have a word with yourself. I mean, I'm very unkind to myself. And there's a lyric in a song that says, if someone spoke to you the way that you spoke to yourself, I'll kick their head in. It's true. We speak to ourselves so horribly, but have a word with yourself. Remind yourself that you're an absolute amazing human being who's achieved so much in their life. And it's just you, your inner little arsehole that's telling you that you're not good enough for this. So I think be kind to yourself is a huge thing. And since I've got a car, it's given me the opportunity to go and blast some tunes out and have a sing-song, and that's helping as well. But have a word with yourself and go and have a sing-song.
I'm on the same page there.
Thanks, Vic.
Like
Michelle?
There's like a nice little theme leading into one of my kicks there, because one of my kicks is music, dance and drama. So we're going to have a dance, we're going to have a sing-song, and let's face it, imposter syndrome can be a drama, so we're bringing it all together. I think basically it's reflecting on something you've both said about recognizing. So recognizing that it is yourself. It's that you know, the little things on your shoulder. If you've got the devil and the angel sitting on your shoulder, it's a devil telling you you can't do it. So just, you know, find a way, you know, if you think of cartoons, they flick it off your shoulder, find a way to put it back in the box, but to kind of take a step back every now and again and just kind of reflect on the good things you've done. You know, I've learned with my PhD to kind of go, you know, thinking about my journey of how I've getting to this point. And, you know, it's a funded PhD. It was a competitive process. There was 100 applications and I got my place. So I must have done something right then to get to where I am. So it's just listening to your own kind of inner narrative about what you're good at, what you're not so good at, but then trying to figure out, are you not good at that? Or are you just telling yourself you're not good at that? And trying to think about, if you're not good at it and you're really not good at it, what can you do to try and improve that? You know, just so do some of that reflective practice, but also listen to what other people say, because they're the ones looking at you, you know. So when my mum's saying, you are confident at that, and my business colleagues are saying, you are bloody good at that, and my students are saying, that was an awesome lecture, listen to it for once and kind of go, yeah, I am actually good at what I do. But then I'm terrible. It's like the other day, my students I got a couple of messages after, and I'd done a lecture on social innovation and social enterprise. So I was bouncing around I would have loved to be bouncing around the classroom, but I couldn't because obviously I'm online. But it was a really kind of energetic, charged lecture. And students were pinging me emails going, you know, that was awesome, really enjoyed that. And even then I started reflecting on the bit where I lost my, you know, my tongue got tied in a bit like that. Just try and stop doing that. And just, you know, like you just said there, Vic, it's the little arsehole inside of you going, no, you can't, no, you can't, no, you can't. And just learning that to mute it. And how you mute it, thinking hard though, isn't it? Yeah, it's finding your own way.
Okay, thank you, you three. I'm just going to open it up to everybody else, and I've just picked up, and in fact I wrote this down, it fits in perfectly what you've just said, Michelle. So Jackie, if you, I don't know whether you feel okay just speaking up, or if not, I'll just open it to the group.
Pause our recording so that people feel that they're able to speak freely.
Okay.
And just thanks again,
Sure.
panel. Thanks, Dawn, in particular, for bringing all of that science bit, some of the wisdom, and some tools for us to take away that we'll all get on with later. And hopefully people can hear this on the listen again will find this useful too. So thank you.